So welcome back to CISG113, section 1 on day number 9, week number 5. Okay, officially today is the first day of your second learning contract. All right, so you should have already finished your first learning contract by the end of last Friday, and we have 2 days time for you to submit your work. That is this past Sunday and yesterday. Okay, and the submission deadline is 11:55 yesterday. Yet, let me tell you something. If you happen not to submit something by yesterday's deadline, you still can submit something here today or tomorrow. Yet, there will be a slight indications that you are late. All right, even though you're late, my principle is I will accept late assignment for the first learning contract. All right, so don't need to worry much about this, and I will not take points out of your late assignment, but just 1 or 2 days, because this kind of assignment is quite different from the conventional assignment, and I could see a lot of excitement generated in different pockets of the students. Some students ask me questions, really, at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I happens to be there and I answer questions. I've been answering questions numerous times, actually many times, so I used to do something like that. But I'm excited because you take it so seriously. You didn't go to sleep and you ask me questions for that. I say, wow, great, this student, we need to help them. All right, so don't worry much about in case you happen to miss the deadline yesterday. My principle is, if I just see that you have been urged to complete your work, even though you were late a little bit, it's okay, all right? But the most important thing I want you to learn, starting from a second learning contract, is this very important form of self-management. Okay, let's come to this, all right? This is week number 5, all right? If you look at the theme of week number 5, it's called self-regulated learning. Self-regulated learning, SRL. That means we should have said bye-bye to inquiry-based learning, but I must tell you that no, we cannot say bye-bye to inquiry-based learning. Actually, inquiry-based learning is considered as part of self-regulated learning. In inquiry-based learning, our training is based on developing our ability to question into something. So we need to generate a lot of questions. In the interpretation part, once we have found enough of the notes, or better say discovery of a given topic. Now in self-regulated learning, we have the following, which I would like to make sure you understand. Self-regulated learning requires us to understand the goals that we set at the very beginning of our study. For example, if the goal is to get an A at the end of learning contract number 1, what you need to do becomes your task. Your task is make sure you get everything done before the deadline and submit your work, because without submitting your work, you will not be able to get the score, and without the score, you will not be able to get an A. So SRL means what? You need to understand these critical things, okay? The goal is, if I want to get an A, I must get something done before the deadline. To get something done before the deadline, I must plan ahead. So the second important thing in SRL, after you know your goal is to understand how much time you have, your timeline, okay? In the first learning contract, the timeline is 4 weeks, because the first week is honeymoon week, okay? You actually have 3 weeks per learning contract. So starting from yesterday, we consider as the official beginning of the second learning contract. And the second learning contract is going to end 3 weeks, okay, from yesterday, all right? So at the end of this 3 weeks, you have another set of artifacts to generate, to submit, in order to earn the score. But the interesting thing in the second learning contract is, instead of only 2 persons doing things, you would need the help of another pair, considered as the team pair. You will have a team. Now you have a pair, okay? You will affiliate with a pair. In the second learning contract, hopefully by the end of this week, you can identify who is going to be your team pair, all right? You need to find a team pair. So self-regulated learning again asks students to set goals, to understand the time allowed to get the goals accomplished, and then the plan of action, action plan, okay? The plan of actions include understanding what task has to be finished before the deadline, what artifacts must be produced before the deadline, and who in your pair or who in your team are responsible for what task or what products, okay? So action plan requires of each member on your team to understand your role, your obligations, your tasks assigned, okay? And then, since you have 3 weeks time to get your job done. Now this is my personal experience as a student. If my teacher gave me 10 days time to do something, normally I would worry about this for 8 days, and I would stop worrying and start doing things during the last 2 days. Okay, then I would say rush, 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 too much, too much, too much. And then I would say, sir, why are you giving me so much to do? And we cannot finish it, extend the deadline, and then whatever it is. That means we are used to procrastination, okay? And it's very interesting that we should cure this. We should stop procrastinations. So we need to know time management, okay? We need to know divisions of work. And we need to know we have to have a systems of assessment internal of your team. This is called monitoring and adjust, okay? Normally, in 3 weeks' time, my suggestion is you need to have at least 1 meeting before the end of the first week to talk about what you're going to do with the 2 weeks coming. So before the end of the second week, you must set up a meeting to monitor what has been accomplished. And towards the end of the third week is the time for you to check if we have finished everything. So 3 weeks' time is not that long, but it's not that short. So you need to have the kind of systems on self-regulations essential. If you click on this link, there's a lot of suggestions here, all right? So let me see if I could bring you back a little bit on, no, actually, maybe I could do it. Something like this. Yes, let's see, project information literacy. Yes, right here. It's going to be fun, all right, when we talk about project information literacy. Let's see if I could give you this very important message. I think this is okay because you know the values of Wikipedia. Okay, let's see how much time do we need to spend here. 12 minutes, it will be good. Okay. I do not know that the first place I go for information is Wikipedia.
But I've had professors say you may not go to Wikipedia.
But I do anyways. Outside, of course.
Me too. I don't care if it's peer reviewed or not. I just want to figure something out that I know nothing about. I mean, nothing.
Gives me what? I gotta know what it is before I can go ask someone else about it, or to find out about it. Just makes sense.
Wikipedia is awesome. It's got good English, no fluff, it's written like I can understand it. Gives me links to other stuff too. Takes me to the real stuff I need.
Sometimes when I get to the serious research, I think back and say, I thought Wikipedia said this though, but this source is disclaiming it here. That's when it gets interesting for me.
Yep, not that Wikipedia gives any real surefire evidence. Just makes me feel more comfortable, confident, ready to go on. Wikipedia is my first go-to place, but certainly not my last.
My observations when I look at some of the journals, a small number of you actually use Wikipedia sources there. One thing good about Wikipedia today is there's no less important than the Encyclopedia Britannica. 15 years ago, everybody looked down on Wikipedia, but today is different. The one thing beautiful about Wikipedia today is a lot of relevant sources, because if you do not have a source, you can hardly publish anything in Wikipedia. Okay, this is one thing I would like to remind you. Learn how to use Wikipedia in your second learning contract. Okay, the second thing, this is interesting.
Do I procrastinate? Sure I do. Sometimes I just get too overloaded with too much information coming at me. Learn this, write this, turn this in.
I don't mean to wait until the last minute, but I work 2 different jobs and have so little time.
I know I can always find something online, even at the last minute.
I can't always be studying. I mean, college is about having some fun, even if it's only a little bit.
At 2 a.m. the night before it's due, when I've got all the stuff I need and I start writing like crazy, it just comes to me. That's when I'm creative.
Maybe I'll see something on the bus, a billboard, a newspaper, a book someone is reading, and it gives me an idea for my paper.
With all the work from other classes, I just prioritize what to do from week to week and go from there.
I wait and I wait for the professor to say something. Give me some more guidance about what they expect.
Sometimes I delay working on school stuff because, well, I'm just feeling lazy. Just too tired to do much of anything.
So you know that it's not a new problem for teachers to recognize students who need to work it out the day or 2 days before the homework is due. Particularly, is that kind of assignment is called research paper. Last time when we introduced to you information literacy, we introduced you to a rather serious manner about the things you need to do, write topic, sentence, whatever it is. But this time, let's try to reflect on your personal experience by studying. To reflect on, are you that kind of student who tend to procrastinate? All right? If you are the type of student who tend to procrastinate, what are you going to do next? All right? Now we're studying the second learning contract. So this is normally the result of it.
What's frustrating about conducting research? It's when I type in keywords and I get a whole bunch of results, which sounds good, but so much of what's there is insanely irrelevant.
Just getting started on a research assignment is the most difficult part of the research process for me.
It's not knowing the right words to use when I search. Let's see, I'll call my topic this, so now, what does someone else call it who may have published something about it?
I always have trouble narrowing down a topic for the assignment.
Finding statistics is hard. You're looking for some specific statistics, and you have to go through a million articles, and then you may never find something you can use.
A lot of the time, it's a case of information overload. The more I know, the less I realize that I know. It can be kind of depressing.
I never can find that perfect source, the one I know I really want, so I eventually settle. I say this isn't perfect, it's not what I really wanted to write about, but it will work, so I'll go with it.
What's frustrating is when I look on the library shelf and I find some stuff, but it turns out to be 10 or 20 years old. Gee, that's hardly what can be called up to date. I can't use this stuff.
It's not so much doing the research part of the assignment that's difficult, it's actually writing the paper.
What's the research process supposed to be about anyway? Is there some right way I'm supposed to do it? I mean, I always feel like I've got to create some new system each time.
The frustrations, the limitations, they remind me we're still living in the early days of the internet. There's information out there that should be readily accessible that we assume is, and it is not though. That's just the way it is.
Normally, you want to find an excellent source to support your argument, and your time is so limited, and you become frustrated because you really cannot find it, and you need some more time to do that. Today is served as a basic, what we call a summary of the experience. Okay, sometimes it's really hard to get things done. So what are we going to do? We know that we need to look for some sources. We know that we need to write that 4 to 5 pages research paper. We know that we have procrastinated. We know that we are frustrated sometimes. So what are we going to learn from this? You need some kind of strategies. So the second learning contract.
If you want to know the truth, by the time you get to college, no one says to you, well, this is the efficient way to do research. Find information. You did this on this day and at this point. Then you have to come back to it later on. This saves time. You have to come up with some method to get through.
I start by figuring out what the question is. What does the professor want? Then I look up sources, I take some notes, then I write the paper. I pretty much have it down.
When I need some background and to get started on an assignment, Wikipedia is where I go.
I might ask an instructor about going in a certain direction. For me, this keeps the paper from going off in a different tangent. Who knows? Might lead to a better grade, too.
Depending on how big the paper is determines whether I need to go to the library or not. If I have too much, sure, I'll go to the library instead of relying on internet stuff.
Writing on a different topic may mean pulling from some different sources. Sometimes I have life experiences or examples I want to weave into the paper too.
If something's really tough to answer, like trying to think of the word to use or how to narrow something down, I might ask someone for help.
After I look at the course readings, then I simply look up the citations on JSTOR. It gets me through.
I see research as involving the same steps, the same sources each time. I always say, if it works, then why change it?
Exactly. As I said, you really cannot find relevant resources. Many students will go back to my reading list. Underneath that questions, I have at least more than 3 sources for you. And how many of you have just used those sources instead of looking up your relevant resources? Is one strategy, but have you learned enough about information literacy that way? So, finally, I hope that I'm giving you a quick review and overview. You need the context of something. Time management.
I have a young family, and balancing hard work with other commitments takes organisation and a sense of urgency. The pressures, timescales and priorities in the workplace are very different to academic life, and they can change in a heartbeat.
It's true. However organised you think you are at university, start using the basic tools. Use your calendar. These will be great disciplines, good habits to get into while the pressures are different.
The trouble is, most people think that they are already good at time management. And the only time they find out that they need help is when it's too late, when something's going wrong. So I live my life using a simple 4-box matrix. Urgent and important, urgent and not important, non-urgent and important, non-urgent and not important. Deal with things that are urgent and important, but don't let the non-urgent work creep into the urgent box, or you'll spend all your time firefighting. In fact, I try to finish everything a little early to give myself a bit more breathing space.
I get my breathing space in the evening. I use it to plan my next day meticulously. It helps me sleep soundly, knowing that in theory I can get everything done. However, lots of things at work will be completely out of your control. Control the things you can, manage other people's expectations, work hard, negotiate, and ask for help.
I also have a very strict rule for emails and messages. If I can answer within 30 seconds, I respond immediately. And if not, I carry on with the work I was doing. Again, you could spend your day reacting to things and not actually getting any work done. Working in teams, particularly international teams, can bring in added pressure as you wait for other people. You have to take this into account. I look at my calendar at the beginning of every day, so I know what time I have for what tasks. The only non-negotiable should be client service. It's vital that you manage everybody's expectations around delivery. When you know that your client takes absolute priority, everything else becomes easier to partition.
Mistakes? Yeah, one springs to mind. In my first week I had a power cut at home. My phone didn't charge and I missed a meeting. In my first week, I now have a separate alarm clock. We all live and learn.
Of course, getting things right first time saves a lot of time in the long run. But remember, if you slip up, apologise, deal with it, and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're not robots, we all make mistakes. The best people learn from those mistakes.
Okay, you got the lessons. You got the lessons. So what are we going to do? In your self-regulated learning, make sure you learn from the mistake in the first learning contract. Make sure you kill the tendency to procrastinate. Make sure if you want to avoid frustrations towards the very last minute, one day before the submission day, you need to plan ahead. Okay? When you plan ahead, you need to set goals. You need to know the timeline. You need to know the action plan. You need to know how many hands are there in your team. You need to have systems of monitoring your work. You need to have the time single out to adjust your plan. You need to have feedback. All right? All of these are self-regulated learning stuff. You're going to put it in practice in the second learning contract. Now, please get online with your mobile devices. I have something very important that each one of you need to complete. Okay? Please get online now. I'm going to give you at least 30 minutes to get them done. All right? So, make sure you're online. All right? So, we just passed week number 4, and you finished, and most of you have finished submitting the 6th item. Now, go to this particular questionnaire, each one of you. Now, I would like you to do it in class with your mobile devices, and this is a learning experience. People consider this a quiz. No, it's not a quiz, but it's going to be a mirror to reflect for yourself. The messages have already been given you through the videos that we've done. So, if you go to this particular questionnaire, you discover, okay, you discover that it's a questionnaire which is going to ask of you to provide answer to the following questions, okay? It's considered as a very important questionnaire for me as your instructor to know the progress of each one of you, okay? But collectively, we collect data. So I'm giving the big data of the learning after the first learning contract. So the first question asks of you, do you agree your learning experience so far in this general education course has been designed and rendered consistently with the GE program intended learning outcomes below, okay? So if you finish reading the 7 intended learning outcomes and take a look at what we did over the past almost 1 month's time, and then you can give us a possible response out of 6 one. You strongly disagree, you disagree, you slightly disagree, you slightly agree, you agree, you strongly agree. Just pick one, okay? Are we going in this direction, which based on your experience in the past one, do you believe that we could help you accomplish some of those objectives here, okay? This is question number 1. This is for the whole GE experience in this course. The second question, do you agree that your learning experience so far in this general education course has been decided and rendered consistently? That means one after the other, very in turns. With the course learning objectives of this particular GE course, we just have 3, remember that? Help students become literate in the fundamental understanding information security and privacy, associated with the incorrect error including concepts of computer, communications insecurity using modern-day example course. This is just the first one, all right? The second is to encourage students to formulate and express your view on the design of information security and privacy. For case study, your journals, your stories, written work, your report, or presentations, your in-class participations, in classroom discussions, they like to receive more. And to raise students' awareness of the impact of information security and privacy on the computer industry, and the widespread focus of insecurity issues from various applications through practical discourse on the use of secure communications of purposeful human endeavors. Okay, again, you need to pick the choice. And for the third one, we get into it in the second and third learning contract. And in the first learning contract, we did a little bit. It's about the intended learning outcomes of this course. We have 6 only, and actually it's already too much. Normally, we can only do 3 to 4. But in this course, you have a choice. So each person's might master a different set of intended learning outcomes. So at the end of this, okay, so far, how do you feel? Do you believe that this course experience that you have already encountered will allow you to encounter each one of this, and then you make the choice? And then, do you agree, number 4, the general education course has been delivered so far according to the course schedule? When you look at the course syllabus, are we going according to the course syllabus? We've just gone through the first 4 weeks, okay? And then, have you studied our general education handbook, all right, which is available from the UM Moodle website, and as suggested by me on the first day of class. If you did it completely, you just say completely, almost, or some, or not at all. It's up to you to choose. And have you studied the course syllabus as suggested by me in the first day of class? This is very important. And then, if you did study the course syllabus, which part of the course syllabus have you studied? Did you study all the A, B, C, D, E part, or just A, or B, or C? All right? And which part of the course syllabus do you find most difficult to understand? All right? This is something just to make sure that you know that this is obligations to understand the course. You need to study the course syllabus. And then, have you studied the course UM Moodle site as suggested by your instructor? I know everyone should have already visited the Moodle site. Have you studied it? I just limited to the first 4 weeks. Okay, 0-week block, or first week block, or fewer than 2 weeks block, or fewer than 3 and 4. It's really up to you. All right. So it's very important for me to know your patterns of learning. My job is to make sure I can help develop in each one of you a habits of mind and habits of knowledge management. All right. So, and then, do you agree that having studied the general education handbook could actually help you understand better the course learning design? Why are we doing what we are doing? Why do you need to do learning contract number 1 to include the 6 learning artifacts? Why couldn't you finish it one day before the due date or something like that? Number 11, do you agree that having studied the published course syllabus, including the design philosophy of this course, could help you understand better the day-by-day classroom an online activity of the G course. When we come to class, normally we have a couple of videos and we invite you to share, and then we invite you to stay in your group and talk among yourself, and then invite you to come to the discussion forum. A lot of things you're going to experience studying from the singular culture. Do you agree published course syllabus, including the OBTL, the OBTL is very important because the schools go in this direction. It's outcome-based teaching and learning. The reasons why you're doing journal, do you understand what skill can develop in you when you do the journal? And do you understand what skill can develop in you when you engage in online forum discussions? What skill can develop in you when you start writing your report or modifying the report with your partner? What skill is going to develop in you when you write your blog out of the report? So something like this is basically is an OBTL concept. Do you agree with branded learning? That means besides the classroom contact hours, we still have something called before class, during class, after class, and end of the week activity. Do you understand? Okay? Do you believe these are good, or do you believe that it can help you? Have you ever looked into things like this? All right. So basically, these are you have to exercise your mind to use your experience to verify. And do you agree that weekly electronic resources put on the Moodle environment could help you to understand better, okay, including, of course, the class videos, all right? So, I know this sounds good, but we like to take notes, all right? So, we'll take notes from the students, but we need to respect your positions. Do you agree that weekly dual format, now we're getting an interactive lecture, instead of teacher talking all the time, we'll pass the microphone to you, and then you need to share, okay? By sharing this, we're participating in class, and you can also earn your score towards the end of the semester. Remember, have you signed up for the sharing stuff, all right? If you happen to sign up, but I forgot to give you the time, next year you remind me before the class, I want to share this class, all right? So this is some very important things. And how many weeks electronic resources on Moodle have you ever reviewed? All right, this is a lot of choices here, but I just want one thing. All right. And 17, do you agree that the G course that helped you to participate actively in class so far? Do you feel comfortable to raise your hand or talk among your team members? Do you agree that G course can help you develop your independent learning in such area? What do you think of the first learning contract? Do you believe you have enough freedom to choose a topic, or do you understand that you can choose a topic? Yeah. Do you agree that the G course can help you understand and related knowledge applications in everyday life situations? For example, we start out with the news documentary, all right, which tells you people in Hong Kong continuously being hacked or being tricked over the phone, that many people lose millions of dollars because of that. You take lessons from that. And then do you agree that the G course can help you think critically about the course concept, all right? So when we talk about in the past 4 weeks to finish the 4 common module, do you believe that these are stimulating enough to help you understand something important? Do you agree that the G course can help you develop your communication skills? You can talk with your members of your team or your peer member. And then, do you believe this G course will really help you learn to learn? All right? And it's based on your experience so far. And so when you go through this, and I expect that you need to complete this questionnaire so that I could share with you the findings this coming Friday. It will be very exciting to read student responses, okay? So may I just invite you, because I believe you know the question and you can choose. So may I just invite you to spend time with your mobile devices to complete this questionnaire now, okay? So that on my Friday you can share. All right, so the time in class exercise where you complete this questionnaire is now. All right, if you need help, raise your hand and come to you. All right. Yes. You can get on Please complete the questionnaire. It's very important that you give me the data of your responses so that I know how to make adjustment, right? So, do you know where to find this one? Questionnaire? Okay, let me help you stay. Yes, yes, because you this one, yes, okay. Don't go to learning contract number 2, okay? It's not open yet. This is learning contract number 1 immediately after week number 4, all right? So please do it. It's very important. It's one time of data gathering, all right? As a teacher, I must give you feedback. Yes. Take your time. We devote the whole class today to introduce you on SRL, reflecting on your experience on IEL, and then do this questionnaire. It's very important. Yes. Can you find it? Normally, 如果你有個 notebook，叫做 notebook 叫做 Do you need some help? Can you do that? Can you find the questionnaire? Thank you. By completing this questionnaire, you are actually getting yourself ready for some of the expected work you need to do in the second learning contract. For example, asking you to measure the amount of time you spend in the first learning contract's work. How many hours have you ever done? We need to do that because we need to make sure we give even emphasis to different courses available to them. This question asks, did you finish the 6th item, or which item you have not finished, including things like this, right? So, yes. Yes. while you are doing this, I'm going to also call for attendance. Takashi. Thank you. Johnson. Yes. Thank you. Zero. Thank you. Austin. Austin. Austin is not here today. Okay. Light. Light is also not here today. Austin is here, right? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm doing the attendance call this one. Atwood. Thank you. German. Thank you. Karina. Thank you. Amos. Thank you. Calvin. Thank you. Abby. Thank you. Dorothy. Thank you. Expensive. Thank you. Kira. Thank you. Sam. Thank you, Sam. Family. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Ian. Thank you. Julia. Julia is not here today. Okay. Benjamin is here. Thank you. Kiwi. Kiwi is not here today. Thank you. So, and you hear Kiwi is here. Sophie. Thank you. And then Maggie. Thank you. Oscar. Thank you. Billy. Thank you. Sunny. Thank you. Mabel. Thank you. Stanley is here. Katie is not here today. Okay. Iris. Thank you. Iris Lowe. Thank you. Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. Joao. Joao is not here today. Joe. Thank you. Ovado is over there. Killian. Thank you. Killian is over there right now. Sophie Sue. Sophie Sue. Not yet. Okay. All right. So let's see. 6 attendance. How can I help you?因為你要嗰啲係屬於你原則係你自己出嚟嘅，你嗰個問題應該係唔係喺嗰9個 question 裏面，但係我睇落喺個 category 裏面，但係就唔係就我要自己諗，係，因為你講個寫你自己出嚟。Oh, that's good. That's good. But the idea is not just take something directly, but you can use this as a category and produce your kind of research. Proposal means something new from you. But definitely, in this course, right? The course, it's within the course, within the 9 specific questions of the first module. But you don't just speak to it, because each one is a 9 questions starting with what. You want to see if you want to start with a why or how. That's okay. But I like this group because we're very serious about this. It's very serious about this. So how many of you have finished the questionnaire? Are you still doing the questionnaire? Okay, just go ahead and continue your work. I do not want to disrupt you. You still have 20 more minutes to do. Have you found Teams yet? Very good. I want to start up this week with a specific video, but I just wait until the majority have finished the questionnaire. Okay? Well, the idea of this question is to make sure you understand what you're doing, all right? So, because in each learning contract, we have different methods that would like you to pick up the habits of learning. And the habit of learning is here. What do you experience? Okay? It will be very inputful for the teacher to look back at your answers to see if you got the idea. All right? Okay, now if you have not finished the questionnaire, feel free to continue doing that. But since this week, we're going to introduce two topics. The first one is privacy and encryptions, and you know something about this. Something that you do not want to share with anybody since it's part of privacy. And encryption is a method that we use to decode something that could be expressed explicitly into something that only you can understand. So we are going to watch a very interesting video, okay? That is Nora's story, right here. Data protections, what you need to know.
How often do you get asked for information about yourself? Or fill in a form with your personal details? Maybe you work with other people's data. How do you know if you're handling it correctly? Whether you're concerned about your own personal data or what other people do with yours? This is what you need to know about data protection. Before we look at the data protection principles and how we're protected, let's cover some basics about what personal data is and what data processing means. First off, meet Laura. In order for data to be personal data, it needs to be able to identify a living individual. So Laura's name by itself wouldn't be enough to identify her, but her name with her address would. Often when you're on the phone and the person you're speaking to wants to verify who you are, they'll ask for your name, address and date of birth. When these three are all together, that's an example of personal data. What firms do with this data is known as data processing, which is just about anything you do with the data, from gathering it, ordering it, storing it, and making sure it's secure to transport or transmit, and also it covers how you dispose of it when you don't need it anymore. Recently, Laura went online and bought some DVDs from Amazing.com. She gave them a lot of information about herself and her credit card details. In this situation, Laura is known as the data subject because the data is about her. Amazing.com is the data controller, as they decide how the data will be processed and what happens to it. Amazing.com outsources its customer support to a third-party call center. Employees in the call center have access to some of Amazing.com's records, but can only use this data for very specific purposes. Amazing.com is the data controller, and the call center is known as the data processor. So personal data is data which can identify a living individual who's known as the data subject. The data controller decides how this data is processed, and processing means just about everything that happens to the data. Now, there are some data protection principles. Let's have a look at them. An important part of processing data fairly and lawfully is the privacy notice. This, at a minimum, tells the data subject how their data will be used and asks for their consent to use it. Laura remembers being asked for her consent when she called up about her car insurance, and also there was a checkbox on the web application for a building society account. But when she asked about her life assurance, they said they needed some details about her health, and this is sensitive personal data. So she was told what this was going to be used for and was asked for her explicit consent for it to be used this way. Laura's health record, religious affiliations, racial and ethnic origin, political opinions, membership of trade unions, physical or mental health condition, a sexual life, and most things to do with any offences or alleged offences she may have committed are all sensitive personal data. It's fairly clear to see why it needs to be treated with greater care than other personal data, and why explicit consent is needed. Like many of us, Laura's got a bank account, car insurance, and a mortgage. When she applied for these, she gave a lot of information about herself to the different firms, but the data she was asked for had to be relevant to those accounts. For example, the bank didn't need to know if Laura had any points on her driving license, or even if she could drive. But the insurance company she used for her car insurance did. It sounds obvious, but it's important, because when data is collected, it has to be relevant to the purpose and context, and not be excessive. Recently, Laura got married and took her husband's name, so data about her surname and marital status need to be updated, because data must be accurate and, where necessary, kept up to date. It looks like Laura can get a better deal on her car insurance, and she wants to change the provider. What happens to the data the old company holds about her? Well, they need to keep enough information for their records, but delete or dispose of anything that's no longer needed. Making sure it's disposed of securely, of course. We've all heard the stories. Hard drives found on rubbish tips, memory sticks with personal data have been lost, and so on. Laura expects, and the regulations require, firms to look after her data properly. This is more than storing data securely. It includes things like verification checks to make sure data is only given to the correct person. the way data is sent, for example by fax, email or over the phone. And it's also the reason many firms have a clear desk policy, so personal data isn't left lying around for all to see. Because if the genie ever gets out of the bottle, there's no putting him back. We live in a global economy, and often firms will store or move data to different parts of the world. If any of Laura's data is sent abroad, the data controller needs to be sure that it's processed with the same standards as it would be here. Laura, as a data subject, has certain rights. Let's have a look at some of them. She can write to a firm and request to see the information held about her. She'll have to pay a small fee. If any of her data is inaccurate, she can ask for it to be corrected. She can prevent her data from being used for direct marketing, and she has rights about decisions which are made by automated means. For example, if she applied for a loan and the decision was made purely by automated means, with no human intervention, then she could ask for this decision to be reconsidered. If a breach in the data protection principles caused Laura damage or distress, she might be able to claim compensation. There's quite a lot to data protection, and our personal data is important to us. Understanding what you need to do to comply with the legislation, and also how the legislation protects you and those around you, will help to make sure that data is processed fairly and lawfully.
You see, this is a very useful video to remind ourselves that basically what we need to do to protect ourselves online. And it's very important that we got this idea from the very beginning. Now I'm going to stop here today because we're already 2:20. I thank you very much for coming back here, and thank you very much once again for your conscientiousness to complete your first assignment. Okay, many of you asked me questions continuously over this past 2 weeks, including days and nights when I use my computer to answer. So get yourself ready for the second learning contract, and hopefully you enjoy this class. Okay, see you back here on Friday. See you. Bye-bye.